of the legislature.
Not reading on my own. I wasn't suggesting. I was asking a question.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
I know. Yeah, well, I did. I left it on for like an hour or two while I was doing other stuff.
Okay, ready? Are we recording? Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Jones, Corporate Officer for the qathet Regional Hospital District, and I'll call this January 27th, 2026 meeting to order. The first order of business is election of chair. So I will call upon the members of this assembly for nominations. I'll call it first time. Director Lennox.
Thank you. I nominate Director Gisborne for chair.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Director Gisborne, Director Lennox has nominated you. Will you accept this position?
After a great deal of thought, being chair for a year and a half, understanding a bit more about the last chair, and I've always thought that we should rotate the position, so I greatly appreciate the nomination, but I will decline the nomination to be chair, but I'd be happy to nominate him for the position of vice chair. So thank you.
Thank you. I will call a second time for position of chair. Director Brander.
Nominate Director Louis.
Thank you. Director Louis, you've been nominated. Do you accept this nomination?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I will call a third and final time for nominations for position of chair. Hearing no other nominations, Director Louis, you are now chair of the qathet Regional Hospital Board.
Okay, thank you.
We'll give you a few minutes.
Choose to fill for Mark.
We'll give you a
Director
few.
Gisborne, sorry.
You have to move over here.
The hot seat now.
Yeah, well,
So, Director Louis, if you want to come over here and we'll just move some things around.
yeah.
Oh, sure.
You don't have to, but let's
First act of business as chair, just to say thank you to everyone. I think you know, I have a little bit of experience with chairing the Indigenous Education Council at the school district, and you know.
Excuse me, can you speak up a bit? I can't hear you.
I think, can we increase sensitivity?
It's usually that I'm too loud.
We can hear you, Director Lennox.
Yeah, I know that. Maybe I'll speak up. How's that?
Yes.
There we go. Okay. No, just saying thank you. Have done a little bit of experience with chairing the Indigenous Education Council at the school district, but also hold the portfolio of health for nomination. So it's very much aligned with the work that I'm doing. And just another thing, I'm just like, you know, working together about that, just all of you, and being able to visibly be working together and show that in the times that we are right now. So I think those are important steps to move forward. So I really thank everyone for that. Hopefully I can conduct the meetings in a way that's professional and be able to acknowledge everybody as a director, because I'll probably call you by your first name.
Sorry, you're fading out. I can't hear you again.
Sorry, Director McCormick. I'm finished. That's all. I was just saying thank you.
So our first order of business would be, oh, sorry. Can you, oh yes, so our first order of business would be potentially to conduct an election for acting chair. So if you, you want to first see if there's any desire from the ability to do that. And then we would need to have a motion, which I've prepared.
So I guess let me ask the board here if we have a desire to move forward with the ability to have a position of acting chair and moving that into the position, and then also having the vice chair position as well. So,
Oh, sorry. Those are the same, vice chair and
okay. So.
good job.
Thank you. I think it's a good idea to follow the act. I think we've talked about this a little bit before and we were all on board with that. I could make that motion that's in the package if it pleases you.
Second. You guys weren't seconds? All in favor?
Discussion.
Speak to the motion.
I think that if I am to understand this correctly, is that an acting chair or vice chair, however you name it, is not actually necessary, required by legislation. Is that true to the corporate officer?
Through the code.
Yeah.
Through the chair.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Section 13 says that you may exercise that authority, so you do not have to have an acting chair. It's not desired by the board, but if you do want to have one, you should pass a motion ahead of before holding the election.
Right. Anyway, so the motion was, just please remind me, sorry.
That the board pursuant to section 13 of the Hospital District Act proceed to elect an acting chair.
Director McCormick?
Thank you. I'm not seconding that motion, so I don't know if you wanted to get a seconder for it. Okay. All right. The term acting chair is, is confusing to me. Is the chair incapacitated? Is the chair gone? A vice chair, we all understand. We all can picture what a vice chair would do and fill in as required. So I really have to say I prefer the term vice chair to the term acting chair. And also, I was very happy with the way we have done it during my prior time on the board, which is rotating the vice chair throughout the remainder of the board. I think it gives everyone, a bit of a taste for it, helps, helps us all grow our leadership skills. And I think it's a good way to proceed, unless there's something in the legislation that I didn't hear, and I'm sorry if that was the case, that says we absolutely have to have a vice chair. So I guess my question is, if we don't absolutely have to have a vice chair, can we do the rotational system the way we did before as an option to electing someone? That's a question, I guess, of Ms. Jones.
Thank you, through the chair. So acting chair is the terminology used in the Hospital District Act, but it has the same, it is the same as a vice chair, just different language. The section 13 says we may elect from among its directors an acting chair. So it does not provide us the ability to appoint multiple people on a rotating schedule, as far as I understand.
Okay, thank you. I guess I would appreciate knowing that for sure. But in any case, I'm not favoring this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I actually support this motion, and the reason for it is in my previous experience of chair, when working with Sea to Sky and Sunshine Coast Regional Hospital Districts, there was an interesting situation where the Sea to Sky chair, I believe, stepped aside to run for the position of MLA, and there was some concern of, okay, is the new chair going to have to get up to speed? And I was informed that they work as a team. The chair and the vice chair, they're on the ball, they're working together, and therefore, if say the chair has to step away, and I believe and the Stoner also had to step away because had to go on maternity leave, and then they were able to kind of swap back and forth. And the idea of having a chair and a vice chair In other organizations, it really is kind of like a team effort where the chair and the vice chair can support each other. And that's where I actually do like the model of having an elected vice chair for the duration of the year or the elected term, rather than a month to month, because sometimes things happen and someone has to step back and the other person can, help fill in the information. So I do like the position of vice chair, and it's something other organizations, other regional districts do, and other hospital districts do, and I think we should be kind of all in the same wavelength. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Yeah, I actually, having been in a position where it was up to me to find an acting replacement for a previous role that I had, I liked that because it gave me a sense of security. It was more of an operational role, obviously, but that's really the only experience I have to go on, and so I like the idea of having an acting chair, and that terminology was used in that position as well. Question time or?
Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just quickly, I support the motion. I think that new chair, it's great to have some continuity in that person, no matter who it is. Rotating this particular portfolio, we'll call it, requires some kind of knowledge, and again, there's some big ticket items and things that need to be understood. So having that, again, continuity of somebody thinking about that, even in an acting role to support the chair, we're all busy. And so I think that provides the board, once those reports come to us, again, just solid extra minds and ears, so I fully prepared to support this. It's in the act.
Thank you, Chair. I support the motion. One of the reasons that hasn't been mentioned already, and or in addition to, here at the regional district, we sometimes have our hospital district business come up in other meetings. And I like the idea of have a partnership between our chair and our vice chair to make sure that the chair can always be expected to be in the loop, even if he may not be at a particular meeting where subject comes up about the regional hospital district. And so to me, it makes practical sense to have a team where you can cover everything off together and enhances working together.
See Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for taking the role of Chair, being willing to accept it. I just want to say I'm not averse to having an acting chair. I agree with some of the comments that have been made, but I do want to point out the Section 13. We're talking about two different aspects, actually. The actual opportunity, or what we're allowed to do under Section 13 of the Hospital District Act, is to elect an acting chair, or we can call it a vice chair, it doesn't matter to me, who during the absence or disability of the chair has the same powers as the chair. So basically fills in for the chair when the chair is unable to be there. And that's what we're doing if we're doing it according to the act. But what we're also talking about is this team approach, communications between the acting chair and the chair, keeping the acting chair, vice chair in the loop, and being, kind of having that as a support role. And I don't disagree with that. I think that can be helpful, but that's beyond what Section 13 of the Hospital District Act does. And I think I would leave that up to the chair to decide on what level of engagement the chair would want to do with the vice chair, to make sure that the chair has the support needed. And if needed, we can discuss that further. But I think, I think the main thing is if we, having the vice chair to meet the act, or the provisions of the act, if we are doing that, then really we're basically having a vice chair in our normal sense of someone who fills in for the chair when they're not there. Thanks.
Everybody's done with debate. People call a question. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Wow.
Now I'll call upon the members of the assembly for the nomination for the position of acting chair. Lennox.
Next chair, I'll nominate Director Gisborne for it.
Director Gisborne, do you accept this nomination?
I do, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I nominate Director Elliott.
Director Elliott, accept this nomination?
I do.
For the second time, we'll now call upon the members of the assembly and a third final time for the nomination of the positions of acting chair. Someone may nominate another person.
Yeah.
Corporate officer will now hand out the ballot.
The pens have little dots on them.
Oh, yeah.
A new.
Those attending virtually, please forward your
But it's not near print meeting, so we're not jumping into people.
Can't hear anyone. Can you speak up, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
How's this
I
for
think volume issue.
I know I've got my volume turned up, but I wonder if it's something there.
Being Mark, what was your speaker?
It's like it's still outside. But
Thank you. Thank you.
I just moved the whole thing this way.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I picked up the end of the deal. That was good.
That's a really good deal because I lost all the one in the pants yesterday.
Yeah.
They don't know. Okay.
Very loud. So
it's warm in here. Well, it's warm.
we got that kind of party going on.
Thought it was just me. Doing pastry for the.
Very nice. I stuck my hair going.
Huh.
With a vote of 6-2, Director Elliott is awarded the position to the acting chair of the board for the qathet Regional Hospital District. Before we move on, pursuant to procedural bylaw 557, the board would like to entertain the following motion. That the board directs staff to destroy all ballots related to the election of acting chair.
Moved. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you, Chair. At approval of the agenda, we should add the item of appointment of signing officers right after approval of the agenda.
Okay.
I would move adoption of the agenda with amendment that you just mentioned.
Second.
5 seconds. All in favor? Any opposed?
Share the motion on the screen for everybody.
Moved and seconded.
I do know that.
See, I thought so. Thank you.
All those in favor? Opposed? Any? Okay. Let's proceed on with business. Now the adoption of the minutes. Are there any errors or omissions to 5.1 of the agenda?
I'll move adoption of those minutes.
Second.
Seconds, all those in favor? Opposed? None. Moving on to the special regional hospital board minutes from November 10th, 2025. Yeah, any errors or omissions?
I would move the adoption of those minutes, and I'm just curious, can I move 5.2 and 5.3 together?
Second.
Thank you, through the chair. Actually, minutes have to be adopted in a prescriptive order.
Okay, I would move the adoption of 5.2 then.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? None, carried. The minutes of December, so 5.3, the minutes of December 9th, 2025, any errors or omissions?
Move adoption of the minutes.
Those in favor? Opposed? Done. Moving to correspondence, correspondence dated January 9th, 2026 from Delyth Harper, Project Manager, Foundry, qathet Regional, Healthcare Facility Designation for Foundry, qathet. Is there any business arising from the correspondence?
Yeah, can I just remove that, please?
Being putting under 9.
Yeah.
Move on to 9.
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. So just because I just want to understand this, and we've got other business regarding that's relevant, but in the correspondence, there is an ask, and it says submitting the application. I'm in paragraph sort of 3 here in the main body, submitting the application by the end of this month would still allow a provincial review process to begin. So just want to make sure where we are with said application. Is it our application? Is it theirs? Where are we? Maybe I need a little help. Do we need to take any action here? And does our staff know any of the answers to that. I'm a little unsure because of the way it's worded.
Chair, corporate officer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think it would be, we did receive that correspondence that indicated the process that needed to be taken. And from, I believe what it said is that we would need confirmation from BCH, the health authority, that they were supportive of this, this as well. We did forward that resolution that from this assembly to the VCH group, but they have not provided us any feedback on that. They also want to know if we're in support of it and what level of funding is desired, or that we would desire to commit to that project. And I believe that there's an item of business on this agenda regarding that. And so that's where we're at. No commitment has been made, and both organizations indicated support or not support.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure. So in my mind, there's no action to take out of this, but we have further business. Thank you.
Should the board move forward and make some decisions around willingness to support at a certain financial level, what does the process look like that after that? And do we have, and I know it's all new, do we have an idea of timelines at all that we might know, right?
The chair, I think the first logical maneuver would be that we would inform DCH of what their commitment would be, correct? And as far as a timeline, it could be, from my recollection, anywhere between 3 to 12 months.
So the idea would be we control what we have control over, and then we don't know what the other folks are going to do. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just follow up, be clear on this to Director Elliott's question. So my logical process suggests that it wouldn't make that much sense to apply until we get Vancouver Coastal's response back. But because it's probable that nothing would happen anyway, so it doesn't make much sense to follow the request in this letter until we actually hear back from Vancouver Coastal. And then if we applied at that time, like, I don't like to end up with things that I input somewhere getting sort of down in the, you know, in the stack. And that's, I guess, the thing that I'm kind of worried about it. So I'm thinking it would be more strategic for us to not send a letter in, even though if we might want to, until we actually heard back from Vancouver Coastal, and then it would be fresher. Am I thinking correctly on this? Good. Thank you.
Dr. Gisborne?
Yes, going from memory, I believe September 17th, Sea to Sky passed a motion asking for designation of a community hub, which is going to have a Foundry operating in it. And in my most recent conversation or communications with Chair Stoner, they haven't heard anything back yet. And I believe the understanding is from the news article was the hospital district was asking, and then they also need, you know, follow-up support letters from Vancouver Coastal Health and the Foundry in that case. So that's been, what, 3-4 months, and I don't believe they've heard anything back yet from the other parties. So as I understand, we could pass a motion, but we would then also, you know, need to also get the information from VCH and other things, because I believe that's what Sea to Sky is doing. It's they pass the motion and then they're saying, okay, you know, can we get the letter of support from Foundry and from Vancouver Coastal Health to support the motion? Because I believe even for them, you can pass the motion, but the money doesn't go anywhere until after the province comes back with and who knows how long that can take until it gets across the minister's desk.
Chair's report or to.
Okay, so if there is no more business from Director Dinsmore?
I guess it's a question more for the assembly. We've had a request from Foundry for almost coming up to a year now. And out of respect for the Foundry, I think we could either say yes or no, rather than just, bringing them along. Because we're not giving them a yes and we're not giving them a no. And I've always thought that for any kind of nonprofit, best answer is a yes, second best answer is a no, but the worst answer you can give is we'll get back to you. And that's what we've been doing. So I would prefer if we make a decision.
I think that when we get to 11.1, we're contemplating a report for various funding levels. And our support of a yes has to come with a decision about funding level, because that's what the letter from the province said. And so I'm wondering if the question of yes or no gets answered at the same time as we address what funding levels we're willing to provide. And so that's my thought on that.
Apologies, I thought we were on 11.1.
That's okay. No, sorry. No chair report. So, so if there is no business arising, do we?
Oh, sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry, Director McCormick.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hate to see them go away empty-handed, I think we have enough money in our reserve that we should be offering them something. So I'm not just prepared to receive the report. I would like to take action on it and at least proposing the lowest, I guess, of the three numbers that were thrown at us. So I don't know how the others of you feel, but I don't want to send them away empty-handed. I want them to come away with something. So at least that they understand that we understand that what they're trying to do is a decent thing. And it's worthy of some support.
I think we can
Thank
get
you.
that in 11.1. We can maybe answer those questions. Yeah, so I think with that, if there is no business arising, we can move to, there is no chair's report for this agenda today. So we can move to 11.1 and have the reports be emerged from the staff. 11.1 is the Foundry qathet funding levels. I'll ask the board if they would like to have a round of discussions for everyone having 2 minutes each.
I support that process. So the report outlines sort of implications for tax rates per 100 for different amounts of years and different amounts of amounts. And I guess we recommend doing the least amount of years while balancing that cost to taxpayers and so forth. There is also what I read in the report, kind of a general thought that we hadn't been planning for this kind of thing, and that maybe we should be looking at planning for these kinds of opportunities in the future. And so as part of our conversation, I want to definitely make recommendations for funding levels for the Foundry, but I also want to maybe talk a little bit about the idea that we want to support community priorities in health and have some sort of a reserve for that or planning within our overall system. And so that's kind of my, I don't know if it's a question, but rather a thought.
Rounder.
Thanks, Chair. Well, I recognize the good works that Foundry does, and they're in many communities around BC. I certainly don't think that the regional hospital district should be funding Foundry, because since I've been on the board, we've been complaining about the fact that the agreement with VCH is that 40% of any major expenses be paid by the local community. And our argument has always been that because we have a local community that's quite small, low population, it affects us greater than it does other communities. I think it sends a strange message if we now decide to voluntarily support an organization that everywhere else is being supported directly by the health authorities themselves. So, I mean, even the representative from Foundry came in here and told us that we are breaking new ground by having the regional hospital district pay for Foundry. It's being done by the health authorities and every other community that has these facilities, which is, I believe there's dozens of facilities. Why, if we are begging poor and paying our 40%, why are we voluntarily going out and adding either $500,000, $1 million, or $1.5 million to the tax burden for our local community? I like the idea of Foundry. I wish them all the success in the qathet region. I also think that the health authority should be paying for this if they determine that it's a viable and important service to offer to our community.
I believe Director McCormick had her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Following on Director Brander's thought, there's a lot of things that senior government should be paying for. They should be paying for childcare. They should be paying for internet connectivity and a whole pile of other things, Handy Dart. There's a lot of stuff that has been downloaded and continues to get downloaded. So our choices are we either accept that because it's a value to the community, or we don't, and we just simply let it go. And, in the case of Foundry, which is just kind of struggling to get going here, I don't see an issue with providing the seed money to help them get established. That isn't to commit to ongoing funding, but I think 500,000, we have more than enough in our reserves. And we do have a sense that, it's going to be a reasonable cost share request coming up. That, I think we should do that. I think it's valuable to the community that this group succeed. And most of the issues are healthcare issues, yes, and should be dealt with by the healthcare system. But when they're not, well, you either deal with them if they're important or you let them go. And I think these are too important to let go. So thank you, Chair.
Director Southcott was next, and then Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. A central concern for me is the well-being of taxpayers in our region. Because I have talked to people, it's been a central concern ever since I first became an elected person. And when I've been knocking on doors, I've talked to people about how they're doing. I've had some surprising answers. I want to leave that consideration there because I have a conviction in the innovativeness of people to look after ourselves and as a community as a whole. And this goes along with that. I've been involved in supporting youth and youth movement and upstream investments like this since I was a kid. I actually was involved in the design of the youth center before I left high school. It was here. I believe it's anybody's guess as to what building that is. Definitely history. But I've also been involved in motivational programs like Outward Bound during a number of years, Youth Council, etc. These are all upstream investments, and this is future looking. We definitely need to take into consideration everything that we can from our previous experience. But if we're not looking forward, we're not thinking of success. As they say, to fail to plan is to plan to fail. And I think that applies to this as well. We did hear from the fundraiser, the project manager, that they are having a little difficulty with finding other funders that have been historically funding Foundries. And I took I took note of that. Also, I'm aware that there is a pretty significant commitment already into the future for this project by the province, and I think it involves both operational and capital money, and I don't have those figures in front of me. So, and I don't believe that I've ever seen anyone more diligent than that project manager in terms of fundraising and working hard. Also, this organization, Children and Families, I have friends who are employed by it, and I have a lot of confidence in the capability of that organization. So all in all, you know, all these factors come together for me to support this emphatically. Like I really want to see this go, because I've seen evidences here in BC and in Paul River of what happens when you don't fund the future for young people. And it's been abundantly proven. There's all sorts of data from starting in Iceland and through Europe of the success of this kind of initiative. So I really do support this. And I'd like to get to a motion to choose one of the options.
Thank you.
Was next. Sorry, I was going to ask the chair, what is the motion that we have on the floor right now?
We don't have one. Yeah, that's, I think the next is, if we want to put a motion on the floor, or.
Well, I guess that's where my concern and confusion comes from, because I believe it's section 4.45 says that we're not supposed to be debating things without a motion on the floor. I'm fine with discussing information. But I've heard now from several directors that they're in favor or opposed to a motion that we don't have on the floor. Myself, I'm not actually going to speak to a motion then. Just some information, as I understand, one, if this was a motion to support was considered, it actually isn't breaking new ground. As I previously said, Sea to Sky has already passed a motion for supporting a Foundry in their area. But one of the things that came to my understanding over the last several years was regional hospital districts will quite often have very healthy reserves. And it's very tempting to look at a healthy reserve and say, hey, you know, we can fund this project or that project. And there's two examples as to why it might be good to hold on to your gold, I guess you could say. Comox Valley Regional District, or Comox Valley Regional Hospital District, they got a relatively new hospital, and provincial governments are kind of schizophrenic. They change their mind all the time. And sometimes there's no funding available, and then suddenly the province says, okay, we got to do a ribbon cutting ceremony somewhere, we got to fund a hospital. And they asked around the province, and Comox Valley Regional Hospital District had a very healthy nest egg. They had a big reserve, and Comox Valley said, yeah, we can build a hospital, we can do this. And like that, next thing you know, there are new hospitals going up. A more recent example, Regional District in Nanaimo, they're actually increasing their taxation for hospital district because they need a new tower. And they're even putting their foot down with the province saying, we're not funding any funding requests from Island Health until we get a new tower. So simultaneously, they're increasing taxes, building their reserves, and putting their foot down with the province to say, this is our priority, this is what we want. So if our organization doesn't have a plan for our reserves, then everything can be an opportunity. That's, I think, kind of where my concern comes from, is what is our plan with, was it like the $6 million in reserve? And I know 6 million seems like a lot, but when it comes to healthcare facilities, that doesn't go very far. So that's,
we have to keep it at 2 minutes because it was discussion, and we'll put it on the make it to a motion. Just, but I think Director Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just trying to get back to sort of in line. I have a bunch of comments too that I could add, but I won't. Really, the motion here is to receive this report. There's no other action recommended as I see it, and so I'm prepared to move that receiving of this report only.
Is there a second for that motion?
And maybe I'll speak to that. Thank you. I did notice that there is no recommendation, and you know, we have some options in the report, which I respect. And Yeah, I'll just take this opportunity because one of the options that I don't see here is respectfully denying any request. And I do that with extreme reservation. Many things can be true, sorry about that. Many things can be true at the same time, like the need for Foundry. We all agree about that. But also this extreme downloading that continues to occur from the province and the feds. You know, we could talk about our reserves. We need those reserves for our seniors. I'm gonna be one of them one day, so it's a bit selfish, but really looking down the road and the costs that are gonna be inflicted upon us, I think we have some power there if we have you know, and we'll continue to get cost shares and other requests. I get it. There may be other ways for us to help these organizations. I really want to focus on our QRD assets. We've struggled to help out our own building in the town site that needed a roof and some other things, and we struggled with that. And now we've got a request for, you know, and no power to them, but a private entity with a private structure that needs help with an anchor tenant already in it. So I get it. You know, are we even allowed to allocate these funds? I know we're talking about allocating funds. Are we even allowed to do that? We haven't actually got that clear answer in my mind, maybe. Again, you know, we've, somebody has mentioned, we've had a clear message from our taxpayers. You know, there's only one taxpayer and everything's based on the BC assessment rule and households carrying these burdens, which we're already paying for through the Ministry of Health. Thanks.
Not in favor of this motion, regardless of whether the answer is yes or no. I think we do need to have one. And if we aren't debating what it is we're prepared to do and saying yes or no to it, you're leaving it on the shelf as unanswered questions. I'm not in favor of just not having a debate about that. So I think if we are looking at our future and what is important to our community, the gaps in healthcare for youth right now are part and parcel with where people land further down the road as adults. And an investment in youth is generally tenfold paid back over a lifetime. And so the questions about who should pay are great and valid. The province is already kicking in the bulk of the funds. They've already put in the 1.5 million for the infrastructure. And their way of checks and balances to make sure it is a priority of the community to have the community, you know, find a way to come up with and prioritize funding for these youth boundaries as well. So that is maybe a different process than what we've used for hospitals with a request and so forth. The province put up their dollars first, and now they're hoping the Foundry organization can find a way to come up with the rest of those dollars, and then they're going to pay 100% of the operating funds, the same as they do with a hospital. And the coordination of an increase in availability to services isn't going to get here any other way. We can't share with surrounding communities in a viable way. Having access to those services here in our community for youth that don't have cars and their own ability to plan to get to them. I think it's great if you're an affluent family and you can take your child to all of the services, or and you can access anything you want as long as you can drive to them. But that isn't the case for all youth in our community. And leaving them out of the solution perpetually over time in our community has landed us in a position where those people grow up in community and have not healed or received the services they needed when they needed them, and are now suffering as adults and then more even as seniors. Or they've shortened their lives, or we haven't gotten potential benefits from having youth that are taken care of. We aren't the same as every other community in British Columbia. And if we can find a way to prioritize, identify what's important to us and fund it, we should do that. And so that's what I see this as an opportunity to focus and prioritize what's important to us in our community. And not necessarily leave that up to higher levels of government, even though there's been downloading anyhow. But in this case, we're talking about it being downloading, but it's not really, because the province put up 1.5 toward this already. They've already put their share in. And we are now trying to say, because it didn't come through the traditional avenue, because the Foundry is more than just hospital. It's, you know, social, mental, all of these other things that come under different umbrellas in the provincial system, that we are somehow not going to want to play. I don't think that's good for our community, and I don't think it's a great message to send back to the province when they are playing. So I'm in favor, I'm not in favor of this motion to just accept the report. I want to do something about the report and make some decisions, preferably support the Foundry and move forward in this to where we do play and we do support, and our Foundry has a chance and our youth benefit from that. That's where I stand.
I think Director McCormick had her hand up next.
Yes, the Director Fall was before me.
Oh,
So I'll gladly let him go first.
Thank you, Chair. And I have a couple comments. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but I'm not going to ask them right now because the motion is to receive, and you know, unless another motion was put forward as after this, you know, I don't see them as relevant. But what I will comment on is that I actually, and I have a question actually through the chair, but I'll preamble it a little bit. What I actually see is that we have 3 decisions we need to make here, and you know, at some point, and the question will be, you know, how are we going to address these? The first is a basic one, whether or not we want to support this. I mean, we've had discussion. Some directors have expressed support or lack of support, but we need to really resolve that, you know, independent of the amount. Do we, as an organization, as a hospital district, are we willing, do we want to support this Foundry with some capital funding, yes or no? If the answer is no, well, obviously that's an easy next step. If the answer is yes, then the next question is how much. And you know, I really appreciate the staff report. I think it laid out a lot of options, but it doesn't have to be any of those 3. It could be less. I mean, the maximum the Foundry asked for was 1.5 million, and that's why we had those 3 options. But I mean, it doesn't have to be even 500. It could be less. It's just an amount. There's a debate on that. How much would be if we want to support? And the third really is how. The staff report outlines, you know, one option is coming from reserves because the money's there. And I think we've had some, you know, there's some really good comments I support around the table about, you know, what are those reserves for? What do we plan for them? I wouldn't say we don't have a plan for them. We do have a plan for them. They were designed, my understanding is the reason we have those reserves is to fill in, you know, ameliorate across years the variance in funding requests from Vancouver Coastal Health. They come to us with different, always large amounts, always many, you know, lots of money. And we just want to fill the gap. So when we have a low year, we can top them up a bit. And when we have a high year, we can take from that and not really just have this varying amounts from the taxpayer. But that doesn't mean, as Director Gisborne said, that we can't use them for something, but we do want to be careful. So one option, you know, if we decided that we want to and we have a number, would be to use the reserves and then pay it back. That's tempting. Another option would be to borrow or increase taxes. I mean, one of the options is really just tax this year. It's not coming from reserve. Another is borrowing, saying, well, we're going to take on further borrowing to pay that off. The reserves are separate. Those are decisions about how to fund. And I think they come after, you know, deciding. So the fundamental question is whether or not, and that's where, Chair, I'd like to ask through you, if I might, to, and I think our corporate officer is the one, is if the only thing we do today is this motion, if this passed, and nothing else was done, how would the process roll out? Like, what can we expect as a hospital district to address that question, the fundamental question of whether or not we want to say, yes, there, you know, we haven't decided, we all agree that this leaves it in undecided, but how does that decision get made?
I think it would be after you consider this motion, if that is what this assembly wants to do, they can consider a question regarding that.
Okay, thank you. So if I just, Chair, if I might just, what I would understand that to say is it's up to us. We, you know, if we just pass this and we don't do anything, then we haven't resolved this. And then either action gets taken today or at a later time, but I think that means we have to either bring it back later through a notice of motion or somehow, or address it today. But somehow we need to, today or later, I'm not saying the right way, but I think at some point I would like to see a plan where we address that question. If the answer is no, well then, the Foundry can go and on their way and they can figure out what they want to do. And if the answer is yes, well then they can figure out what to do with how much we got and what the gap is to what they need to get. And I have questions about, other things related if we go down that path, but that's where I'm at, and I'll leave it there for now. Thanks, Chair.
Director McCormick, sorry.
Yep, thank you, Chair. Okay, I think we can consider what is on the table now, which is to receive the report as part 1 of our recommendation. Part 2 would be the question of whether or not we support Foundry. We can refer the further questions of how much to a meeting next month when the final budget numbers, I guess, at the regional district are being done, and hospital too. So I'd like to support this motion to receive as part 1 of a recommendation. And if you want me to move part 2 now or wait until after this vote is resolved, I can do either. But I think maybe resolve this vote first, and then I would like to put that motion on the table. Thanks.
The motion on the table right now is number 1, so we'll stick with that. And I believe the Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. Since I, out of order, offered a whole lot of comments earlier, I'm only going to say that I can only support this motion on the basis I was of the mind of not supporting it, but I could support it contingent on the subsequent motion that Director McCormick has suggested. So that is the only condition that I will support this motion on.
Thank you, Chair. Couple of things. I believe it was June, this board passed a motion that the qathet Regional Hospital District Board support the current applications from MICLAC and Foundry qathet to be healthcare facilities. So that was a previous decision that we did make. One of the questions I had in relation to the report, and this actually goes back to the correspondence we had from the Deputy Minister of Health, and I believe it was 1D, confirmation that the requested designation applies to certain rooms, floors, or the entire facility. So if we were to, say, move forward with healthcare facility designation, that's something that we need to answer, is how much of the building itself is considered healthcare facility. I had a tour of the building several weeks ago and I dropped off the actual floor plan to our staff, but I don't see it included in this report. And I'm just wondering, is that information something that would be actually helpful for us to make a decision? Because maybe the ministry wouldn't consider like a meeting room, but maybe they might consider like a medical examination room as a portion of a healthcare facility. So those are like the 2 questions of, how much of the facility is actually a healthcare facility if we are going to follow through with the correspondence that we received. And for members of the public watching, that correspondence isn't on this agenda. You'll have to go back and check the October 21st agenda, which is where that correspondence from the Deputy Minister in response to our June motion is. I'm okay with this motion, which I'm not necessarily even sure if it's entirely in order, because as I understand it, once something's on the agenda and you adopt the agenda, everything is automatically received. So a motion to receive a report when we've already adopted the agenda means we've already received it. So I don't really know why we should be yes or no in favor of receiving a report that we've already adopted the agenda and therefore we've already received it. And really we're starting to talk about, do we support it or not support it, which is a subsequent motion.
So I think, well, the motion on the floor, right, is that the board of the qathet Regional Hospital District received for information the report of funding level scenarios presented January 27, 2026.
We've already received it.
So I think we'll go with that motion to start, and if there's a subsequent motion, somebody can put that forward, but motion. Is everybody ready for the question to be called for the motion? Seeing yes, saying yes. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passed. Accept the report. Does anybody have any additional business for this item? Director McCormick.
Thank you. And sorry, I didn't hear exactly what you just said, but in any case, I would like to move that this board support qathet Foundry, and that funding level to be determined at the next hospital board meeting.
By Director Southcott.
If that works, that motion.
Sorry, just 1 second. It's almost like a postponement to the next meeting to refer this item to determine funding levels at the next meeting. Is that what is desired?
Yes.
Just 1 second. I'm just concerned with timelines because we will be receiving the financial plan. Will that be an issue, Linda, or do we need the decision before then?
Thank you. No, we don't. We could do a budget amendment, so we don't necessarily have to have the decision before then.
Director Elliott.
So I'm not speaking to the motion just yet, just asking a question.
Clarify, perhaps we should clarify what the motion is.
Yes.
So I might suggest if the desire is to postpone making a funding commitment, we might want to consider that, because to say that we're going to support but not provide might be conflicting if that doesn't actually occur next month.
That is actually at the heart of my question. We've actually already made a motion to support, so that part's redundant. What is required at this point, according to the letter from the province, is that we set an amount so that we can put forward a letter of support. We already support. The part that's missing is the amount. So I would wonder why we would want to postpone that decision and not deal with it today. I'm not quite sure what the benefit of that would be. And so that's my question to maybe the person who moved the motion. Why they would see that as a better thing to do than address it today.
Director McCormick, did you hear that?
Yes, and I have no problem with going ahead today with the motion, if that's the way Director Elliott feels. Maybe the issue is to defeat the motion on the table and then have a new motion to to do it now, for funding to go ahead now. Or can I just withdraw the motion?
That's, yeah, if you would like to withdraw the motion, that's fine.
Okay, whatever's easier.
Everybody in favor of that? Yeah. Seeing yes. Now, any opposed?
Withdrawn. Okay.
So I thought maybe we could put a motion on the floor and then debate that motion, and if people want to make amendments to it or propose something else, we could do that. And my motion would be that the board approve funding for the Foundry in the amount of 1 million, and then we can debate that, and if it passes, we're done. If it doesn't pass, then people could amend the amount or whatever is the right process for that.
Do you have a second for that motion?
Second.
Moving to the second.
So if I could speak to the motion, Chair. So the reason I picked 1 million is because it's It's an amount that that respects the already contributed 1.5 from the province in our tradition. Slightly lower than what we would do if we were through our funding arrangement of 40% through the hospital board. And that is partly because not the entire space is health, it's some other stuff as well. It's I think reflects when something's a designated health facility, and if we want to use it as a bit of a precedent in the future for clinics or something that we may find as a requirement in the future to use this process, that it also includes determining or considering what it is the province is putting in. So we aren't dealing with a situation where the province is not put anything in, because they have. They've done 1.5. So one is kind of in line with what they were thinking. And I like that as a precedent for future determining what kinds of non-hospital community health facilities we might consider as a board. And having that as a bit of a precedent that what the province has put in, it matters to us. It also really is a contribution that will move the Foundry forward and make their goal much like almost an inevitable conclusion will be that they will be able to get to their goals and we will have a Foundry. Some smaller amounts make that a little more challenging and still leaves that in the air. I think this is a considerable contribution that will be a determining factor in whether we get a Foundry or not. So that's.
Head Director Brander, and then Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. Comments were made earlier about how the province also doesn't fund childcare or doesn't fund free Wi-Fi or anything like that. In this case, the province is funding this. In dozens of other locations, the health authorities are paying for this, and it's not being paid for by the local hospital districts. So why we would be considered different from all the other areas that receive Foundries is just beyond me. You know, why this proposed $1 million would come out of our taxpayers versus coming from the province, I just don't understand that. I think the province should be paying for this, and just like they've done anywhere else, why would they treat us differently? If the need is here, which I agree that it's here, and I agree that these facilities do good works for the community, I think that the province should be stepping up and VCA should be paying for it. I appreciate the fact that they are committed 1.5 million, but I think they should be committing for the whole thing. You know, it should not be our taxpayers coughing up for it. I'm not in support of $1 million going towards something like this, because we are going to need that $1 million to replace the facilities that we already have in town that are aging. Thank you.
Lennox.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And you know, we made, I think a lot of us made some points earlier in our earlier discussion that are apply here now. I appreciate the desire to help. Like we all have that desire to help. I think about our youth. I have youth, you know, I know youth that need services, but some of the comments make it seem like we're not paying our share towards healthcare for our youth, and our taxpayers, there's one taxpayer, and it seems like this is sort of a double hit. The province, you know, we keep talking about the province, is us, right? Like to the points, you know, comments made earlier. I get that, but like to kind of double whammy, then the next question is, okay, is this coming from reserves, which takes from our seniors? Like again, the costs are going to just climb astronomically, and I guess a question. This is more than likely a weighted vote. This is a financial vote, so I guess this is a weighted vote with the city councilors having the weight. So I'm asking that question.
Thank you. Thank you. At this assembly, we have one more vote than we do at the regional district. And so it is tied, and a tie, if that's your question, amongst like all of the areas.
Is it a weighted vote?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. That was my main question. I know I meandered there a little bit. So yeah, like I appreciate the intent. Like I say, I believe in what they're doing. You can see it working in other communities, but again, we're gonna pay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I agree we're gonna pay, because it isn't the province that is stepping back, it is other funders, from my understanding, from what the Foundry project manager has explained to us in the past. And that doesn't make me feel any better about us paying, but I think this is the future as well. So I just have one other comment, and that is that over the past few years, and since we had a youth council, I've been following an organization called Gen Squeeze, which was started by a UBC professor, Paul Kershaw. It's very interesting, the numbers that come out of that organization, because it demonstrates the ratios between costs to our entire system, federal mostly, related to demographics. Generally speaking, there's much stronger voice and influence by my generation than there is by the younger generation. And there's no mystery in my mind as to why that is. But it can be seen, and it is seen, by those younger people who I am in contact with who are political, as quite unfair, actually. So that, coupled with, as I mentioned before, my commitment to upstream investment, it makes me support this. So I will support this motion. Thank you.
Can I speak?
Yes. Right on.
I just, want to kind of recap some of the information that we've received from BCH in the conversations, and to their knowledge, no hospital district has actually stepped up for capital contributions for Foundry. There has been contributions for programming, and I think they didn't have the figures in front of them, but it was, I think, 200,000, 300,000 was kind of the cap. You sort of look at the requests, and if you're using the province's, contribution, like if we're going off of the parameters that we've typically used, which is 40% contribution of a cost sharing, like I think that's about 600,000. If you're using 1.5 as the standard input for the province. So what makes it difficult is this isn't on the hospital district lands too. For me, it's like that's a like that kind of loses our position as to what our mandate is in a way. So I do support the youth, and I do think in this town that we do need something. I think the path forward though is, I don't know if it's the way we're doing it. It feels like we're kind of getting backed into a corner and say, hey, can you do this? If not, like, are we stuck, right? Like, I just feel like there's another way we can try and approach it, and I know that's not on the table now, but I just wanted to kind of pass along that information that we've got from ECH about what they've done with Foundry, and it is under consideration for them with their operation plans moving forward too. So it is something they're considering from other municipalities too, and other regional districts to fund these. But I think it's at an operation level is what they're looking at right now. So I see Director McCormick has her hand up, and then Director Griswold.
Thank you, Chair, and I certainly do not disagree with you. I think we get so caught up in balancing the budget and dealing with the needs of today that we forget how important it is for us to also address the needs of the future. And I think that's where a group like this is stepping in to fill the gaps in the healthcare system, the gaps in the social services network, the gaps that all of these kids are falling through, Like, I think this is a really important initiative. And I might have suggested a lower amount than $1 million, but I believe that in our reserves, we can't really justify having nearly $7 million sitting in the bank and refusing to, give something as seed money. And that's, to me, what this is. This is not a commitment for ongoing funding. This is one time. And let's wish them every success and hope that it's what they need to get them to where they want to be. Anyway, I'd like to see us support this and move on. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I echo some of your concerns. We have a hospital, we have a long-term care facility, actually a couple of long-term care facilities, and they're all on regional hospital district property. And I look at, for example, the Miclac situation, which we have not provided funding for, but that's our asset, that's our property. And this situation, it is not a proposal that's on regional hospital district property. And as I've mentioned before, senior governments can be very schizophrenic. They change their personalities every election or even halfway through a term. And one of my main concerns is right now, BCH and other agencies have come out and said, we are going to support the operations of Foundry. Well, you might be 2 years from now and the province just says, hey, we're cutting all the funding. And that would then put us in a very a pie on our face to say, hey, we've provided a huge capital contribution, and unless it's getting those operational supports, like it just becomes an empty building and it doesn't revert back to us. It doesn't, it's no longer in our control. So that's where I have a concern. I do support, providing seed money and providing things to move forward. And I looked back through their original applications to both the qathet Regional District and the Regional Hospital District. And I believe their ask was $25,000 from each. And my thoughts, months and months ago was I would be prepared to support a $50,000 contribution, which in order to get healthcare facility designations under Section 49 of the Regional Hospital District Act, you have to have the application go in, but you also have to have a dollar amount. So we can't say we support it, but we're not going to put a dollar amount in. $1 million is a lot of money, especially for property that's not ours and it's not government land, it's private. That to me is a big concern. If this was, say, a different avenue and they'd come to us and said, hey, we want to do something on Regional Hospital District property, I would feel very different about it. And to echo, I believe, what Director Brander said and other directors have been going is, I grew up in this town and I remember there being like satellite youth health services in the community, and those have disappeared. That was Vancouver Coastal Health and the provincial government shutting those down. And now they're going like, oh my goodness, we don't have youth health care services, really. And now they want us, the Regional Hospital District, to step in and make the pie whole again. And $1 million to me is, it's too much, especially when there is huge need in this community, especially for long-term care. Go up to the 4th floor anytime. You'll see the place is packed with people that need to move on to different facilities that we don't have in this community. And I know it seems like we're just sitting on a big pile of gold like a dragon, growling at anyone that comes near, but I think those funds need to be prioritized for assets that are on Regional Hospital District property. And I don't have enough of the information in front of me, even though I have it all in my head, the letter from the minister and the floor plan and all these other kind of things, but to just say yes to $1 million, it's a bit too much for me at this time.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to reinforce what the chair has brought to this and their comments. These are capital cost shares. Capital needs to be our assets, and we're also, reviewing major capital cost shares every single year. The latest one is an X-ray machine that's turned into an X-ray room for almost $1 million. And, that is an actual asset of ours that I can now, I need to understand and get behind that possibly, but to consider $1 million for an outside entity in an asset that's privately held to then really have, hopefully long-term benefit with no guarantees and no real understanding of long-term funding for that organization, what $1 million would do in a facility. We're not supposed to it's a request. What did that $1 million do for a facility? We talked about what are actual healthcare deliverables, I guess I'd say. And so what does the money go to? Talked about administration and other things. And, you know, we haven't got the nitty gritty of what the money would actually supposed to be for capital. That tells me it's the building. Back to the original point, not our building. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to provide an alternate perspective about the ownership of the building. I also wanted to, in contradiction, talk about the math and the idea that hospital board money doesn't go to leased areas, because that might be true here. I don't know the whole history of where we've been in our hospital district, and I can study that later, but I do know that in many areas of the province we do clinics or smaller facilities that are not related to hospitals, that are lease improvements type things. The asset is the lease improvements, not necessarily a building that's not owned, and they're built on long-term leases or whatever it takes to give assurances to the hospital districts that they have access to their assets should things not continue to run. The province has committed to 100% operating funds, so you not knowing that isn't really relevant to the fact that they have, and they're doing it across the province for a lot of foundries. It isn't about whether they're going to keep running, that the commitment is to provide all that operational funding, the same as they do for hospitals. So that might be something that you worry about, but that question is answered. It's been asked, answered, and it's on the table that way. If you're looking at a 60-40 split between assets, as we typically do, whether they be leasehold improvement assets or a whole new building, and I might point out a whole new building or a purpose-built building on our hospital lands, the budget then goes up more than tenfold to build a building that is for this purpose. And so then you're looking at even a larger share, which is even harder. So 1.5 million plus 1 million is 2.5 million in total, and 40% of that is 1 million. 60% of that is 1.5. And so those numbers and the math that I put forward were absolutely accurate to proportions that we currently do through other processes. It's not perfectly new to have health facilities that are supported by hospital districts that are like clinics or something that's completely medical related. The only thing that's a little bit different is sharing a space with some other services. But if those are actual medical services sharing that space, and the overall budget is 5 and half of it is used for medical service, that proportion is also right. So I don't think the math is wrong here. It's whether we want to broaden our horizons to supporting health facilities that are outside of the traditional hospital. And hospitals are already overwhelmed, and trying to deal with all of the services is unsustainable, not working, and causing a huge problem here. We can't expect the hospitals to deal with our youth and everything they need. And the fact that the province is separating their approach to medical health and mental health also provides a dynamic that requires some out of the box thinking. I don't think we're wrong on the math. I don't think that it's breaking new ground to fund facilities that are not hospital related and maybe not even on hospital grounds. It's been done by other areas in the past for a seniors medical facility or something that's outside of the hospital things. They just weren't called foundries. They were called something else. So we might even find that in the future we need a building to support family physicians, which isn't because all of the, I don't know if we'll find that, but if we had no family physicians because they couldn't come to our town because there was nowhere to operate professionally, would we address that or would we not? I would be in favor of doing that. So the information I'm putting forward is the math is correct. It isn't groundbreaking to provide funding for healthcare facilities outside of a hospital So in our community, all of the facilities that used to help youth in this regard were family and hospital. Family system's a bit overwhelmed at the moment too. Accessing youth health care, even whether it be mental or physical, is sometimes not self-referring and requires a lot of travel out of town. There are no access to psychiatry for youth in this community unless you do it through the Ministry of Children and Families. Youth are not really good at accessing through that overly bureaucratic system with, you know, kind of the severity of trying to get services that way is pretty difficult. Self-referring at the Foundry, and psychiatrists that maybe would like to come in for a day, a month or something to make their services available. They would then have a place to do that. They don't right now. The mental facilities we do have at the hospital are overwhelmed and there's not enough space over there. So I think the question is here, not that we're breaking new ground, but that we're calling it a Foundry in this case instead of a health clinic, because health clinics do get funded. And we're calling it, we're being asked to go outside of the traditional avenue and work with Foundry BC, which is through the mental health side of things versus the physical. Have I gone too long?
Beyond the 2-minute, yeah.
My apologies.
No,
I'll wrap it up.
I
Thank you.
understand. Yeah, I was gonna ask, ready to call the question.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. I just have questions. I'm hearing a bunch of numbers, like how much the province is funding. I can't seem to find it anywhere in the report that's on the agenda, and I'm just, as I'm hearing, it's like, you know, the numbers are correct and the math is correct from Director Elliott, but I can't seem to find that information on the agenda, and I'm just wondering, is it somewhere else?
I have an answer.
Really?
It was submitted by the Foundry themselves when they came as a delegation.
Okay, yeah, just not attached. Thank you. Oh, can we get the motion up on the screen? Oh, Director Fall. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I would like actually to put forward an amendment, and I would like to amend the $1 million to 500,000. If there's a seconder, I would explain it.
Director McCormick seconding.
McCormick. So, you know, there's been a lot of discussion around this table, and I think we all support this project. I think the in principle, helping the youth, it's just a matter of how it gets done. I think we have some concerns, and, you know, I mean, I don't want to get into the math. I don't dispute. I actually do agree that Director Elliott's rationale for the $1 million does make sense from the 40/60, but we aren't really doing, I mean, there's another argument to say that that's not relevant because this isn't coming from VCH. And so that ratio, you could argue it either way, whether it's relevant or not. Where I'm getting to is our tax dollars. And if you go on to page 8 of 9 of the report, that's actually how we fill this in. So when I outlined earlier, if we do this, how do we pay for it? We kind of have two options. Imagine that we borrowed. If we said, okay, we need our reserves. If we didn't have the reserves, we would borrow, and that would have a cost. We talked about that at other meetings about how we repay, and we have had a tendency to try to repay sooner than later. None of us like long-term debt. So and we don't have those numbers, but if we were borrowing this, that would add significantly more cost over time. Because we have the reserves, that doesn't mean there's not a cost. Those reserves make profit and revenue for us over time. So over a period of, say, 10 years, there's income on that. Not very much, but 2-3% that we earn. And I'm not going to ask Ms. Greenan for the numbers, but really the amount is more than that. It's not zero, right, over that time frame. But the more to the point is, and we haven't even got to the item on our financial plan. The draft financial plan for the hospital district proposes estimates a 2.1% increase. And that is about $65,000. If we look at the $500,000 amount here and a 10-year period, which is sort of where my mind was going to, if we were to try to raise requisitions now to pay that $500,000 back over 10 years, that would be $50,000. That would be another 1.61%. So instead of 2.1%, it would be 3.8%. So in other words, it would almost match. It would almost be the same as the increase in total. If we did that over 5 years or 4 years, over 1 year, it would be 16%. That's out of the question if we want to control taxes. So in other words, if we went for 500,000 at a 10-year replenishment, repaying back to the reserves, that would be approximately, that would be still less than the increase. If we went for the million, then we're at 3%, 3.2. So it wouldn't be so our 2.1% increase would be now all of a sudden 5.3%. And that's, to me, starting to really get into the kinds of other discussions about the single taxpayer. And I think it's a matter of finding balance. So that's the numbers part of me. The numbers part of me goes there and says, that's the rationale. I can support 500,000. And I can also back off a bit and talk, kind of politically, which is I've heard there's been a lot of debate around the table. I think lots of good points raised on both sides of this, whether or not issue. And I think it's really, really healthy and really good. But I would like, ideally we can come together on this. I've heard, support for providing funding, support for not. And I think, what I'm trying to propose here is something in between. Let's I will support this if it goes to the vote. Come to the middle point, provide support that keeps our taxes at a reasonable level, and it recognizes that our perspectives around the table, that we are balanced. And I just like to finish off by saying, and I have maybe I'll have it as a question. I do have a question through the chair, if I might, and it's come up a couple times, that the capital is not our asset. We've talked around it. So I guess really the question is, if we're providing capital funding for assets that's not owned, I don't think it's a matter of needing to be owned by us. I mean, I don't agree with that. We have provided capital funding, as an example, to the health center on Lasqueti Island. We don't own that. That was money that went to the Judith Fisher Center. They own it. But there is a big difference. They own it. They're a society. And if they had problems, if they, had to dispose of that asset, it would have to go to another society or to us or to the government. It's still theirs. Whereas this is a lease, and the improvements, maybe at 500,000, the improvements would be movable assets. I don't know. So maybe that's the question through the chair, if I might, before, letting the debate proceed on the amendment. If we're, are we, who would own the assets, I guess is the question. If we provided this and that money goes into capital, and that, does the Foundry own that asset, or is that an investment into the owner of the building and improving the value of their asset? That's probably from Ms. Green, and if she's through
the chair. Thank you, Chair. So if we were to provide the funding and we didn't own the asset, then I think the money would go towards leasehold improvements, and that would be part of the building owners. The building owner would own that asset and own the leasehold improvements.
Okay, thank you for that. And that's for me a big rationale for not sticking to the 60-40 ratio as a guiding rule of thumb. I think providing support so that it can happen, that this is a kind of downloading, but if we want it to happen, helping them do it. But I just think that this would be maybe supportable, or at least I'm willing to support 500,000. Thank you, Chair. I'm done with my rant.
If we can get the motion up on the screen.
So it's an amendment to change 1 million. You'll see the whole motion, I guess, but the amendment to change 1 million to 500.
Yes, Director
Second. Want to know the main motion that we're amending?
So I have it as amended currently, but this is what's currently on the table.
Okay. Thank you, that helps.
Yeah. One question.
On the amendment?
On the amendment, that the board approve the contribution of $500,000 to Foundry qathet towards construction of the facility, on the condition that the funding be provided once Foundry attains the designation of hospital facility.
The main motion.
So that's the main motion.
Sorry.
So we're currently voting on changing 1 million to 500,000.
So the question on the floor is the amendment from changing from 1 million to 500,000. All in favor?
Director Fall, Director McCormick.
I'm in favor. Yeah.
Sorry, Director McCormick, I couldn't see if you were in favor.
Yes, I am.
So. And then you would say all of them.
All of it.
To be clear, right question? With the way the motion is stated on the screen here is 500,000, it's not a million. And as I understand, the amendment is to change it from 1 million to 500,000. That's what we're voting on right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, then.
Yeah.
Thank you. No,
I probably
thank you for
didn't,
that.
wasn't clear with that. So
That's
the
all right.
original motion was for 1 million.
Right.
The amendment is for 500,000. That's what's on the floor right now. Is the amendment from 1 million to 500,000.
Maybe call it again, Chair.
I'll call that again. So all of those in favor of the amendment from 1 million to 500,000.
Aye.
1, 2, 3.
All opposed or any opposed?
Okay, and so. Okay, you voted in favor.
Sorry.
In favor?
Yeah.
Okay, so that one is a tie, and so. Because it's a leading vote.
Okay. So the motion's still at 1 million?
Yes, so the main motion is now.
That is your
Director Gisborne?
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment that hospital facility be struck out and replace it with health facility under section 49 of the Act.
second.
Speak to that. In the Act, it's not hospital facility under section 49, it's health facility. Well, we should get consistent.
Section 40.
Yeah, under section 49.
There's debate on the amendment.
Is there any debate on the amendment changing hospital facility to health facility under section 49? Seeing none. Call the question.
I'm in favor.
Okay, all those in favor?
The amendment, yes.
The amendment?
It's a simple thing, I'm sorry.
Any opposed to the amendment? That passes.
Back to me.
So back to the main motion as amended.
I would propose an amendment to change 1 million to 800,000 because I'm thinking that might help people be more comfortable. And it gets kind of in between where we were landing.
Second.
Second. Southcott. And then we'll. Any debate? Director Gisborne.
Yeah, I find it interesting that we're like trying to split the difference, but it was our board that set the kind of parameters of 500,000, 1 million, and 1.5. So it's like we're splitting the difference between the difference that we set. Myself, I'm comfortable with like the $50,000, which was the original ask. I think everyone would be comfortable in my community, at least, at Area B. And that would at least allow, say, an application to move forward. Because even this motion, if it passes, whether it's 800,000 or $1 million, going back to the letter from the ministry or the deputy minister, they said that we actually have to submit some paperwork. So if we pass this motion, I expect there'll be a subsequent motion that we direct our staff to submit, say, an application to actually have it designated under the following conditions. And one of those things is how much of the facility is considered a health facility. And we don't have that information. And the reason I would lean more towards, say, a 50,000 amount, 800,000 to me is a bit much, is if you get the designation, that's kind of like you get the key to provide funding. And we then can use that key at any time to, go and unlock the door at a later point and then say, okay, we're going to give another 200,000 or a different amount even later on. But right now we could even say $10 million, but that money doesn't go anywhere until an application is successful of going through through the ministry. That's kind of where my concern is 800,000 is a lot of money. It's less than $1 million, which I'll probably vote in favor of that because it's reducing it. But at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty with this. And there are concerns that have been expressed around the table. And I would support something that helps us move forward similar to the motion that we adopted last June, which says that we support them and we would support an application and we put a dollar amount, but not something that it's a big chunk of change. Even $800,000, which is essentially a new X-ray room, I think is what one of our requests are. So I would support the amendment, but I would even support an amendment to go even less than that. But then there'll be a subsequent motion to say we do an application. My apologies, Chair.
Thank you. Through the chair, just one more item that needs to be addressed, if that's okay. I think we need to decide where we're going to, if this motion passes, where are we funding it from?
Oh, yeah.
And if the assembly is interested, I could provide some wording to assist with that. We could do that after.
My thoughts are, and I know Director Paul said about like a 10-year period. We had a similar discussion when we were talking about long-term borrowing for Resource Recovery Center. I don't like taking a lot of money from our reserves and then taking 10 years to fill it back up again. If we actually want to say, yep, we're going to put $800,000 towards this, then we should increase the taxes this year and we should justify it at the next election, which is this year. Otherwise, you're going to hide the tax increase and put it onto future boards. If you want to be bold, be bold.
So we'll call the question. I think there is a lot of information on the table. We'll call the question as is, so that the board approve a contribution.
No,
Sorry, the amendment.
The amendment. Okay, so the motion is to, or the amendment is to go from 1 million to 800,000. All in favor? Yeah, any opposed? Carries. So now the main motion as amended. All in favor?
So it's 3.
All opposed?
And that's a weighted vote, isn't it?
That motion passes.
Motion passes.
Along with a subsequent motion, that it come out of the 1-year replenishment.
Seconded. Thanks, Chair. We're looking for a 1-year payment here, right? And the staff report is pretty clear, because if we choose 10 years, it's not just 800,000, it's another 55,000 in lost interest. There's other ramifications, more taxation. I think I've been pretty clear, but again, it was like it's just another $32.54 per household. Guess what? That stuff adds up every year we do this. Every year, all year long. My residents are heading for some serious user charges and other things in a great proportion of my community. Every time we do this, chip, chip, chip on that same taxpayer. Thanks.
May I just get some clarity? So that was the funding we provided from a Section 20 reserve and replenish over a 1-year period?
Essentially come out of this year's taxation.
Thanks, Chair. I agree. If we're going to go and do this, own it. People will recognize that their taxes are going up, and this decision is going to drive people's taxes up. 800,000 is a significant amount of money. We need that money in reserves for other facilities. We gotta get back in there right away.
Thank you, Chair. I also agree, and I'm also willing to make this an election issue if it comes to that. I'll stand behind this.
Yeah, it's just a question, I think, to our Chief Financial Officer. I used the numbers on page 8 of 9, and I came up with $8.74 per 100,000 by just multiplying the second column by 0.8. And I'm just wondering if that number is close for if we do this for this year for 800,000, it works out to roughly $8.74 per 100,000. Want to make sure we know what we're doing.
Through the chair.
Thank you, Chair, through the chair. Yes, it's actually, it works out to $9 per 100,000 or $53.58 per average household.
Thank you. What was the second figure? Sorry.
$53.58 per average household.
Thank you.
So see Director Elliott and then Director Fall.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you said
No,
I
that's
got
not next to.
my messages crossed. So I think in past discussions, we've all favored the 5-year mark as far as the balance between paying back very quickly and not hitting the taxpayers all in 1 year for these kinds of things. I think it feels a little bit wrong to take a different tact for this decision. So I would support a 5-year, like paying it from reserves and then having it paid back over a 5-year term. And I do not, so I could propose that amendment, if that's okay with the board.
Do you have a second for that amendment? No second. Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not in favor of 1 year. I'm not in favor of 5 years either, but I see where this is going. But I related to my prior comments, now we're in a bit of a pickle because we're actually contemplating increasing our taxes. Instead of 2%, we're going to be increasing them by my estimation about 25.6% using the ratio plus 2%, 2.1 that's already built in. So instead of a 2.1% increase, we're talking about a 27.6% increase. And I agree with the comment that we gotta, the taxpayers need to see what we're doing with their money, and it could be an election issue. On the other hand, I'm not really in favor of we might take political hits for this, but the from the taxpayer, on the other hand, it has the potential to harm people who struggle, and I think that's just not the right way. I was more in favor of the 10 years. 5 years I still think is too much. I mean, that's why I was trying to get keep the increases modest and within line of where we're at, which would have already doubled them. 10 years at 500,000 would have pretty much doubled. Now we're talking about 10 times, tenfold. I can't support this. I can't support 5 years. I think 800,000 was too much.
Are you proposing an amendment?
No.
Okay, we're here, and so I just think we might need one more motion, but okay, so you might want to call the question if anybody has.
So the question is that the funding be provided from Section 20 reserve and replenished over a 1-year period. All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you.
Motion.
Now we gotta submit the application, right?
Yes, so thank you, Chair. Sorry, there might be one more item of business to do. Direction to staff to send the letter and to work with Foundry to determine, to confirm which portions of the facility the designation applies to. So a motion to entertain that might be appropriate at this time, or we could entertain it in March.
Can I ask a question? Thank you so much. The letter that came from the province, was that speaking to what they require in order to contemplate whether it's a designated facility?
Sorry, if I may, Chair.
Mhm.
I don't have that letter up right in front of me, sorry, but I do have a synopsis from BCH, and it says the RHD letter requesting designation of a specific institution or facility, including the name and legal address and legal description, use and function of the facility, the reason we're requesting the designation, confirmation that the requested designation applies to certain rooms, floors, or the entire facility. And so that last item is the one that we need just some clarity on before we can move forward. And then what we had to do is provide the total approved RHD funding for the facility.
Okay, thank you for that.
So what I was suggesting is the motion to move on that.
I would move that motion.
Sorry.
The motion that was proposed by our corporate.
Debate or call a question?
You read it out again, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, so that was that the board directs staff to work with Foundry to confirm that what the requested designation applies to, and that staff be directed to forward the letter requesting the designation to the Ministry of Health. Yep, we've already moved and seconded. Yeah.
Okay. So, call the question.
Any discussion?
You want discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed?
No, sorry, I'll oppose.
Oh, yes, that motion.
Chair,
File break, please.
yes.
Thank you.
And we're an hour past our planning committee start time. We're an hour past our planning committee start time.
We do have a meeting.
So we've got about 5 minutes?
Yes, we have, where the chair has called a break till 5:02 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah, planning starts at 4, right?
Yes.
Well, we're in Hawaiian time, right?
It's a lot of business.
Recording in progress.
So welcome back. So we've gone an hour past the planning committee meeting, and I'm wondering if we should entertain a motion to adjourn with the direction to staff, fix the time in which we can reconvene on a different date.
Move that.
Discussion. Can we discussion? Does anybody? Director Gisborne?
Yeah, thanks. If this was a one-off, I wouldn't say anything, but this happens all the time. And we just adopted a new meeting schedule last month. And my concern needs to happen. So one of the things I always ask myself, I'm like, well, if it keeps happening and we keep doing it, then I'm a little concerned that we're either rushing or we're not giving. If we're rushing, we're not giving enough time to the items in front of us. And the flip side is that we're taking time away from another planning committee meeting. So I'm in favor of the motion, but maybe we should consider our meeting schedule.
Thank you. This happens sometimes, and I'm in favor of the motion, but I'd like to ask staff if there's anything time sensitive that might be put in jeopardy if we do that.
Chair, with a motion to fix a time to adjourn, we will just pick this meeting up. It will be like this meeting just took a break, and so we'll likely meet again fairly soon. I'm just going to review everybody's schedules and see if I can pick a time that works for everyone and get a notice out. Thank you. Yeah, we'll be okay to hold.
So all in favor? And opposed? Great. Meeting is adjourned.
You made it.
Sure.
Get it.
Thank you, Chair.